What up, reader fam? Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be going over some books that I've read the past few months. We're going to be doing some rapid fire book reviews. I am very behind on sharing my thoughts on books that I've read recently, but what's new? If there's one thing I'm consistent at, it's being behind. Today I'm going to be sharing quick, straight and to the point thoughts on books that I've read over the past few months. But before we get to it, today's video has a sponsor. Likewise is sponsoring us again. Yay! If you don't know anything about Likewise, let me fill you in. It's an app not only for list lovers, so I will say if you're a list lover, you will love this app, but an app for people to find media similar to the things that they love. Whether it be books, podcasts, television, movies, or a plethora of other things, Likewise is the app for you. Likewise is the perfect recommendations app. For example, let's take a peek at one of the books that I'm going to be talking about today, and one that I love, and one that I would love to find other books that are similar to it. That book is John Green's The Anthropocene Reviewed. All you have to do is look it up in the app, you can like the book, and it gives me an array of recommendations based off this book. Now that I'm thinking about it, let's look up Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children and see what pops up, because I'm curious as to what recommendations are going to be based off that book. Okay, we've got some superhero books, some fairy tale-esque books, which honestly makes sense considering there are a lot of otherworldly abilities, and also there's a bit of a fairy tale vibe with that book. I'm going to go ahead and say solid recs. Likewise is like having a bookish friend at the ready at all times. You need a book recommendation, they've got you covered. You need a community of people to chat with about books, they've got that covered. Going book shopping and need to know if a book you found is worth it, Likewise is perfect for you. They also have other solid features within the app that I love. Like I said, the app is a list lover's best friend because they offer a function where you can make an infinite amount of lists. I've also curated a list of books that I will be mentioning in this video, so be sure to download the app and follow me at jessethereader. I follow everyone back. They also have saves, so if you find a book that you're interested in, you can save it for later. They've also got the asks feature, so you can ask the community for recommendations, and they've also got an option to buy books within the app. I have a custom link for you guys down below in the description. Likewise is a free app, and again, if you follow me on there, I'll follow you right back, and we can share recs with each other all the livelong day. It's easy to make an account, and it's actually really fun inputting all your favorite movies, TV shows, and books within the app. Thanks again to Likewise for sponsoring today's video, and with that, let's get on to it. Let's talk about some books I've read over the past few months. It's time for some rapid fire reviews. First up here, we have The Cost of Knowing. Every object that Alex touches sends him a vision of the future. When he sees a vision of his brother's death, it's a race against time to prevent his death. I loved everything about this book. It is drenched in one of my favorite topics discussed in books, death. And I'll admit, this book was stressful because our main character is in such a sticky situation in this book. Like, just imagine picking up objects around your house and just seeing the future of that object. Constantly touching things and seeing the future of those things. It pretty much complicates everything within his life. Like, he knows things he should not know. For example, he's in a relationship and sometimes he touches objects and he's like, oh no, no. That's dangerous stuff I'm seeing right there. And because he knows he'll sound cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs if he reveals the fact that he can like see the future, essentially, he's left feeling stressed and anxious about every little thing he knows. And not only about the people he knows, but also all these things he knows about strangers. Overall though, I cannot recommend this book enough. I loved it from beginning to end. Highly recommend. 5 out of 5 stars, baby. Next up, we got Things We Lost to the Water. I received this in a Book of the Month package. This story follows a Vietnamese family that immigrated to the States. They're living in New Orleans and their family is struggling to stay connected. But when disaster strikes their city, their family is forced to work together and rebuild their family structure. There were a lot of things that I enjoyed about this book and a few things that I wanted a little bit more from it. I really loved seeing kind of the evolution of this family, seeing where they came from and how they got to where they are emotionally. It was really interesting seeing how their connection was fractured, shattered, and then rebuilt. I will say that I was rather underwhelmed by the ending just because it was the climax. It was the banger of the book and it kind of fell flat a little bit. It needed to keep climbing and hit that max, the climax. I feel like maybe had it just had like 5 more chapters, it would have been a banger. Would have hit the max, but unfortunately it did not. And while I did feel like I had a grasp on every character by the end of the book, I still had a longing to know the characters more than I did. I felt like there was a rift between myself and the characters, causing me to not be as connected to them as I would have liked. If I were to give this book a rating, I would give it like a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up here, we've got Victories Greater Than Death. In this book, we follow Tina, who is the hidden clone of a famed alien hero. She was left on Earth disguised in order to help the Earth from a terrible evil. Essentially, Tina and her group of friends must do everything that they can to protect the Earth. This was a no. It's marketed as a young adult book, but it reads like a middle grade book, which would have been fine had this book been marketed as middle grade, but it's not. It's young adult. The writing was very immature and overly repetitive to the point of me just wanting to chuck the book across the room because I had had enough. I don't have the urge to chuck a book often, but this one brought up that urge. It was screaming, "Chuck me," and I said, "But no," and it said, "Chuck me," and I said, "But no," and it said, "Chuck me," and I said, "No! You're making me mad, but I'm not chucking you." It does have a lot of fun, adventurous moments that led me to the end. Like, that's what kept me grasping to reach the last page. And I love the fact that it explores sexual identity, because I feel like we don't often see that in sci-fi and fantasy. We're seeing it more so now, but it's taken a while to become a norm. Overall, though, it was a bummer of a book for me. I'd give it like 2 out of 5 stars, unfortunately. Next, I read What We Lose. I don't know that I have the words to explain this book. It's essentially a peek into the life of our main character as she faces a bunch of rough chapters within her life. From death, abortion, racism, identity, motherhood, and infidelity. This is a shorty, but it packs a punch. It do be punchy. I felt the punches. I was nervous going in that it wasn't going to do justice in covering all these topics because of its length, but it just slam dunked everything it discussed within it. I was just not expecting it to execute everything it did in the way that it did. Even while a lot of these topics are things that I cannot relate to or even fully understand, like there are things in here that I will never ever understand, I do think that reading books like these are important because it does open your eyes to other perspectives and other ways of life. I will say that with this one, I think it's best to know what you're kind of getting into before you go into it. It's just a lot to digest, and I don't see this as a book that everyone will end up loving, but I personally really enjoyed what it brought to the table, and I would give it like a 4 out of 5 stars. Next up here, we've got Spin. When a famed DJ is found dead and the investigation surrounding this death comes to a halt, 2 best friends who are feuding at the time put things aside and come together to figure out who murdered this DJ. Setting their grief aside, they put all their energy into figuring out this murder mystery. I feel like this author is very underrated. I've read another book by the same author, that being Not So Pure and Simple, which was so solid and so underrated, and then I read this book, Spin, which is also so solid and so underrated. That's 2 for 2 with Lamar Giles for me. It's a book that I found myself having no trouble finding myself embedded in. It's suspenseful at times, and it also does a really good job of executing character identity. You leave the book knowing everyone really well and understanding their role within the story. The mystery element will absorb you and take you for a spin. Pun intended. Yes, I am a big cheese ball. I'd give Spin a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Next up, I read Tokyo Ever After. We follow Izumi, who is Japanese-American, living in California with her mother. When she discovers that her father is the Crown Prince of Japan, her world is quite literally turned upside down. Izumi takes a chance to get to know her father and the life he leads in Japan. We follow her as she finds herself caught between 2 completely different worlds. This book in my mind is like The Princess Diaries meets The Parent Trap. It's so fun, and I literally went into it thinking that I'd hate it. Like, I went in with the expectations that I was getting a YA romance, and like, if you know me at all, you know that ain't my cup of tea. If that's the tea I'm getting, I'm gonna spew it all over the place. Too bitter for me. But I found that it was so much more than a YA romance, even though there is a romance at the forefront. And listen, this book might be pitched to you as enemies to lovers, but please, dear God, do not listen to people who say that this book is enemies to lovers. We have 2 characters that pretty much butt heads for maybe 5 minutes. Maybe. Might be even shorter than that. But like 5 minutes later, they've got butterflies for each other, so. I loved learning more about Japanese culture throughout this book. In fact, this book made me miss Japan desperately. Somebody get me back there ASAP. I also loved the mending of the father-daughter connection within this book. They have this estranged relationship. Izumi knows nothing about her father, but it's wholesome as we watch them try to mend the gap and become closer. I give this book all of the stars, all of them 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it, and there's a sequel popping out into the world which has me hecka excited. I cannot wait for that. Give it to me now, please. Next up, I read The Ones We're Meant to Find. In this book, we follow 2 perspectives. First up, we've got C. C one day woke up on the shore of an abandoned island. She has this vague memory of her sister, and she will do anything she can to get back to her. Then we follow Casey. Casey is a STEM prodigy who is also working on escaping from the science she once believed in. I'm kind of in the middle with this book. I pretty much spent the entirety of this book trying to figure out what was happening. I could not wrap my mind around the plot. And I feel like maybe knowing the ending and knowing how everything wrapped up, I would have a better experience with this book if I were to reread it. It was hard for me reading this too because I favored one of the perspectives over the other one. And when we flipped to the one that I didn't care about, a part of me kind of like mentally checked out. I was like, okay, we'll just sit back, relax during this chapter until we get to the really interesting chapters. I'd still be taking in the information, but I was less invested. And lastly, I felt like I was kind of plopped into a world that was never fully built up. It felt like the structure of it wasn't even really written within the book. And it felt like everything could crumble with one page flip. So, I don't know. I'm still processing my feelings, but I'm leaning towards like a 2.5 out of 5 stars. Maybe a 3, maybe a 2.5, I don't know, 2.75, 3, 2.8, 2.5? I don't know. I'm gonna say 2.5 for now, though. I had high expectations going in, and I kind of came out of it on the lower end. Yeah. Next up, I read The Unbroken. We've got Terrain, who is a soldier, and Luca, who is a turncoat. Terrain is dealing with remembering his ties to his homeland after being kidnapped as a child to work for the Empire. And Luca is focused on winning back her throne. I didn't hate it, I didn't love it, it was just okay for me. I think the thing that I forgot going in with this book is that with every new fantasy book, it takes its time sometimes to get to the actually interesting bits. And that's where this one fell. It was a turtle ride into the thick of it. But once I got to the delicious parts of the plot, it was fun as heck and I enjoyed myself. But a majority of the book, in my opinion, was kind of in that sluggish territory. With that being said, world building, immaculate. Character depth, it was laid out fantastically. Adventure, we got there eventually. I'd give this book a solid 3 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I'm going to be talking about today is The Anthropocene, reviewed by John Green. The book that I always want to say, the anthropocene. It's not anthropocene, it's anthropocene. This is essentially an exploration of different random things within our world brought through the eyes of John Green in his essays. It covers things like the internet, teddy bears, Diet Dr. Pepper, and it's really rather interesting. Hi, yes, I did go into this book with a very bad attitude. And man, am I swallowing my words now, because it was so much fun. I read this through the audiobook and it was so delightful. John Green is an amazing audiobook narrator, and honestly, I just want him to narrate every book ever, and I just want him to read to me at all times. Can we make that happen, John Green? Can we? If someone could get me hooked up with John Green's people, that'd be great. It takes these things that you wouldn't even think to like look up and research and delves deep into them, but also John Green throughout this is connecting them to different things in his life or different situations, and he does so in this very beautiful and charming way. I really love this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Alright guys, so those are 9 books that I read over the past few months. There were some books that I loved, some books that I hated, and some books that I was clearly in the middle on. You guys should let me know down below in the comments if you have read any of these books and what your thoughts are on them. But if you haven't read any of these books, then just let me know down below in the comments some books that you've read over the past few months and what your thoughts are on them. I love hearing from you guys and hearing about the books that you've read recently. Again, thank you to Likewise for sponsoring this video. If you guys would go and click on the link in the description, I'd really appreciate it. If you like this video, be sure to go and hit that like button. If you want to see more bookish content from me, be sure to go and hit subscribe or go and hit that bell icon and you'll be notified every time I post new videos. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope your day is bright, that tomorrow is brighter. Keep reading what your heart desires, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye. Oh. The mystery element of the murdery. And the last book that I'm going to be talking about today, I just slipped on my word.